You're listening to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. On UPRN Talk Radio FM 107.7 in New Orleans and FM 105.3 in Mississippi.
If it's unexplainable, we're talking about it.
Whether you're a believer or a skeptic,
We cover everything where the unknown becomes the known.
and now, here's your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 107.7 in New Orleans and 105.3 in Henderson Point, Mississippi, where we explore the unknown and discuss the mysteries that surround us. In the quiet moments when the veil between the worlds are thin, some of us find ourselves on the threshold of the extraordinary. Welcome again to Chasing Prophecy. Just remember, we're on 8 different platforms all across Facebook and YouTube and around the world, live in New Orleans and Mississippi. And we're uploaded to SoundCloud and all the iHeartRadio and all the different radio platforms, the podcast platforms. So I just want to let you know that sometimes I can't see the chat. I'm too busy engaged with my guests. So don't be offended if I don't get to all your questions and comments, but make sure you do comment because we're thrilled to welcome a truly extraordinary guest to our airwaves tonight. Steve Stockton, the acclaimed host of Everything Out There, joins us as we dive deep into the shadows of the unknown, exploring a spine-tingling realm of the paranormal, supernatural, and folklore with Steve. From chilling encounters with ghosts and poltergeists to enigmatic tales of cryptics like the Loch Ness Monster, maybe. I don't know. We might talk about that, but I'm sure we're going to talk about Bigfoot because he's out there. And a lot of people know that. And we've had a lot of different guests talking about that. So, and he also says everything out there takes us on a journey into the heart of the unknown, into the world's most haunting mysteries. Steve's expertise in global folklore opens the door to the ancient legends, mystical beings, and traditions that feed our fascination with the supernatural. He's also the host of Missing Persons Mysteries. And I've seen a couple of them last night, and I have to tell you, this man has a voice so calming. So if you're having an uptight night and you just want to be entertained too with the Missing Persons or any of other, you have to check him out because I really find him to be a sweetheart. So I'm going to bring him on, and I just want to make sure, I'm going to look at the chat to make sure it's open. And sometimes, hi Cindy, how are you? Sometimes YouTube and Facebook doesn't show up. You don't get your notifications. So sometimes I just like to wait a little bit before we get really deep into the story and the guest, his talks. And I have to tell you, I've been following Missing Persons for a long time. I started when I started listening to Missing 411, The Hunted, and Missing 411. What was the other one? Oh gosh, help me. There's 2 of them. I can't remember the first one. Hi, how you doing? But and I also like David Paulides because I follow him, and so this really intrigued me when I found this guest on Facebook, and I started dwelling into his his information, and he's an author too, and he has so many books out there. And being an author, I'm kind of envious sometimes when I see these authors that really put out books, and I'm like, so slow. But I'm going to go ahead and bring Steve on. So welcome to Chasing Prophecy, Steve. I'm so glad to have you here tonight. And like I said, I listened to your podcast, and what I'm going to do right now is I just want to show a little bit of just the beginning of it so people can see it. Because I think it is incredible, and I think you do a lot out there that's good. So let me go ahead and bring that on.
All right. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. So let me just play a little bit of it. Let's see. Hopefully it turns on because I'm so slow at this. And sometimes I don't do very well. I don't know why it's not playing. So let me just make sure I hit play. I'm going to make it big too. Can everybody hear that?
Today, we're going to be talking about 5 wilderness disappearances. where mysterious disembodied cries for help were heard by search and rescue teams, but the person couldn't be located. You can imagine how these disembodied cries for help would have baffled search and rescue teams when they couldn't locate the missing person who had vanished in the wilderness. Likewise, the person calling out would probably wonder why they couldn't be heard. As we all know, thousands of people go missing every single day in the United States alone, and while some are found safe and sound and return to their family and loved ones, many are never seen or heard from again. How devastating that must be for the people who remain in the dark about their loved one, wondering always what if and what happened. Are they alive? Are they?
That voice is so, I love it.
Thank you.
Let me make sure I can turn it off because I keep hearing it in the back of my head. Okay. So, Steve, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. I want to make you feel comfortable and talk about whatever you want, but I just want to get a little bit of background. Tell me your story. What brought you here to this missing, people, and your the paranormal. What brought you there?
Yeah, it's been a lifelong journey. I was born and raised in East Tennessee in the foothills of the Appalachians there. And my maternal grandmother was a self-described gypsy witch. Now, I don't know where the gypsy part came in because she was born in the Cades Cove area of the Great Smoky Mountains. But she had a gift. She told fortunes, read tea leaves, tell your future by the bumps on your head, phrenology it's called. Animal entrails when they slaughtered pigs on their farm. She was into a little bit of everything, and she introduced me to the world of the paranormal. Their natural was the supernatural. They regularly held seances, table tappings. Like I said, she told fortunes, read tea leaves, coffee grounds, things like that. And out of all the grandchildren, she had 10 kids, my mom and 9 brothers. And I was born with a veil over my face. Down south, they call it. It's an in-call, or just the amniotic sac was stretched over my head, and they had to cut it away. But in her mountain witch superstitious mind, that marked me as a special child. So at a very early age, she took me under her wing and taught me all kinds of folklore and superstitions and things like that. So I came by it honestly, and then I started having my own personal paranormal experiences around the age of 3 or 4. I saw things and heard things, and that's kind of how all that started. They were part of the spiritualism movement from around the turn of the last century. They had a relative that never came back from World War I, and that was how they got into the Ouija boards and all that. But she told fortunes since she was a teenager. But that was the start of that, the paranormal side of things, and that just continues to this day. But the interest in missing persons happened on Father's Day, 1969, when Dennis Martin disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Lived in the same town, Knoxville, Tennessee, as Dennis did. We were only a few months apart in ages. I was 5 going on 6. He was 6 going on 7. And he disappeared there from the Spence Field area of the Smokies. And of course, it was big news locally there in Knoxville. All the stations covered it in the newspapers and things. And heard about it the day that it happened, that evening on the news. And that was the missing person 0 for me. That was the one that started me. Kept watching and looking, for some kind of news. Somewhere I've got a couple of scrapbooks full of newspaper clippings that I cut out about that case as a child and pasted them in there. And every day I thought, today they'll find him. Today something will happen. And where I lived out in Knox County, we lived on a mini farm, 26 acres. And most of that was wooded. We only had about 5 acres cleared. And in my little 5-year-old mind, I thought, well, we don't live that far from the Smokies. He could have wandered down here. Maybe it was an hour, but that was an hour by car. And I got out on the dead-end country road that we lived on and looked for him on my Schwinn Stingray. So again, that was where I got my start. I'm still trying to help find missing people. That's just something that's been laid on my heart to do. And if you call it a mission statement or what have you, but if I can bring one person home, or worst case scenario, give one family the closure they so desperately desire, then I'm doing what I'm led to do. So that's how my journey with the missing started.
Wow,
So
that's
kind of a mixed
incredible.
bag here. I'm all over the road, but that's where I'm most comfortable.
Yeah, I find it's really cool about was that your grandmother?
Yeah, my mom's
My
mother.
And you were born with a veil. My grandmother was born with a veil, and they always say that you're special, and you must be if it's
Yeah,
not your
that's what I was told. Again, I don't profess to have any powers or anything like that, but I do know things sometimes. That's the best way to describe it. And that's the way my granny was. She knew things that she didn't have any way of knowing.
Yeah, that's neat. I like that. I think it's if you have a relative that's like that, that's a gift in itself because it's so
Mhm.
it makes I don't know, makes it neat. Oh, grandma, she's into that. But that's a credible story. Now, when you're 5 years old,
Mhm.
when your friend disappeared, did they find out what happened to him?
No, they never found any real trace of him. There was one footprint that they thought might have been Dennis, but they weren't sure because there were some Boy Scouts and some Cub Scouts in there helping search too, and it was similar to the footwear they were wearing. Now, there was a family named the Key family that farther down in Cades Cove heard a scream and
Mhm.
saw what they described as a hairy man-like person uh, going up the holler with something red over its shoulder. Well, Dennis just happened to be wearing a red jacket when he went missing. And there are tales of feral people that live in the Smokies. There are tales of Bigfoot and other things up there. Retired park ranger Dwight McCarter, who was the lead tracker on that case,
Mhm.
he's alluded to wild people that live in the park. He didn't come right out and say so. He just said there's some people that live in the park that are off grid and would like to be left alone. But there are other people out there that claim that there are feral people and maybe even Bigfoot human hybrids that live in the Smokies.
Yeah, that's what I was always thinking that they were hybrids of something. Like what? Do you think they're from like I don't know like a lot like I think that like David thinks that they're from UFOs or some kind of an alien hybrid.
Short answer, I don't know the answer. That's what I've found in investigating anything paranormal, cryptids, ghosts,
Mhm.
UFOs, anything like that. One size doesn't fit all. And the same with the missing people. I've had people ask me, is it Bigfoot? Is it Dogman? Is it the Glimmer Man? Is it UFOs? Is it the Fae or the little people? Is it portals or rifts in time? Yes, all the above, because there are certain cases that fit those criteria. So it's
Mhm.
really hard to say. And the longer I've done this, uh, the more less answers I have. I have more questions than when I started. So I gave up years ago trying to find the answers. Now I'm just looking for the next set of questions. And as Charles Fort wrote, one measures a circle beginning anywhere. So I'm
Mhm.
still working that circle and trying to move on.
Well, Tennessee, that's so like there's so much, depth woods and everything. And how many people must get, are reported missing
I
in
don't
that?
have the numbers in front of me, but a lot of people go missing in the Smokies. Not as much as Yosemite. That's the national park with the most
Yeah.
missing people. But the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park. It regularly sees in 12 million range per season, whereas Yosemite doesn't even get half that. So
Yep.
there's a disparity there, but a lot of people do go missing in national parks. Now, it's not always something spooky or mysterious, despite what other people would want you to believe. Sometimes it's just pure misadventure. People that are underprepared and overconfident, it's easy to get lost out there and to injure yourself. And if you don't let somebody know where you're going, if you're not prepared for the elements or don't have enough food and water, it's really easy to make a mistake that's very costly. Mother Nature's unforgiving.
You very, very. What was one of your most? Well, we have a question. Um, could there be portals that missing people may have found?
That's a possibility too. I've reported on cases where people were missing and could see the searchers, the search and rescue people. They maybe called out, waved their arms and stuff, but it was like they could see the people that were searching for them, but the people searching for them couldn't see or hear them. And that little snippet that you played there, that video talks about disembodied voices that people have heard on both sides of that, on the SAR side and people that have been lost. And there's definitely, in some cases, there is a supernatural element to these disappearances, where somebody's on a trail and suddenly realizes they're no longer on a trail. They don't know where they're at. They don't recognize anything. There's not any trailblazers marked on the trees. And they're suddenly someplace they don't know where they are. So, a portal that's not, scientifically proven or anything, but I think it's a possibility. There are things out there that we don't yet understand.
We don't. Do you find there's more people disappearing in a certain area? I mean, I know national parks is one. What about, like, I know people were talking, oh gosh, where was it at? Crater Lake, that there
Yeah.
seems to be a lot that disappear up there.
Yeah. I
And
lived in Oregon for a while. Crater Lake is a very, very strange place. And probably the most famous case I can think of off the top of my head from there is Samuel Bulkey, little boy. I think he was 8 years old when he went missing. Ran up the side of a hill just ahead of his dad. They were playing tag. And by the time his dad got to the top of the hill, there was no kid, and they never found any trace of him. So it could be abduction. It could be predatory animals. It could be human predators. It could be anything. I mean, there is no a certain thing, but there's a lot of different things that it could be. But again, for an animal or something like that, there's going to be evidence. I've seen very sad pictures of animal, big cat attacks and bear attacks and stuff. There's forensic evidence. There's torn clothing. There's blood and other things. But for these that go missing where there's absolutely no trace of anything, maybe footprints, and then the footprints end and the person is never found, there is no rational explanation for that.
Yeah, that's what's scary, because if there's no evidence of any blood or anything, it's like there's no clothing, nothing. So what makes me a little nervous? I used to want to camp a lot, and now I don't even want to go camping, because I hear after you watch all these shows and
It will
YouTube
cure
videos.
you of that hobby. I used to do a lot of solo hiking and a lot of camping. Used to love cold weather camping. Wake up in the Smokies with somewhere off trail. I liked rough camping and stuff with, when the fresh foot of snow on the ground. I wouldn't give you anything for it now, but after doing these, I wouldn't solo hike, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless, you're prepared, have a personal locator beacon, signal flare, some kind of weapon. There's too many things that can go wrong out there that have gone wrong.
And it makes me wonder too. It seems like these people are always by themselves. It seems like whatever this is, or who or what, doesn't come around when there's more than one person.
Yeah, it's always a single person that's maybe, if they're part of a group, they stray off the trail, maybe go to use the bathroom or go back to the car, the campsite to get something, and then they never see them again. That happens in a lot of cases. But you seem to be safer if you hike or camp with a group, but stay with the group.
Yeah, stay with a group or use some kind of beacon or something. So give us some of your most amazing missing persons that you recall.
One that I released a video today, and it didn't happen in the woods or the forest or anything, but from a nightclub in Ohio. A young man named Brian Schaefer had gone to a bar with some friends. He was a college student, and there's a closed circuit TV of him in the bar, but there's no video of him exiting the bar. He disappeared, was never found. So again, did somebody take him? Did somebody sneak him out the back? The one spot that the cameras couldn't see. To this day, there's been no trace of him, and that's been several years now.
And that's in a bar.
Yeah.
So that sounds like
it just goes to show that you can go missing from anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a national park or a state forest or the woods at all. People go missing in the city. There was one story that I covered from here in New England where I live. It happened back in the 40s, late 40s, where a guy went missing from a bus. The driver and the other passengers saw him get on this bus, and he didn't get off at any of the stops between. And when it got to the final destination, his stuff was still there, but he wasn't there, and never any sign of him again. I can't recall the gentleman's name, But
That's
things like
crazy.
that. There seem to be certain areas where it happens. That happened in a part of the country called the Bennington Triangle, where a lot of people go missing, a lot of strange circumstances, a lot of Native American folklore and things in there about missing people and things in the woods that take people.
Yeah, there was a movie I just watched with I can't remember the name. It's a Western. It had Kirk Russell in it. Oh God, what was it? It was scary. It was a Western. Bones something. Oh, I wish I remember what it was. Maybe I can pull it up. There was these. I know it's fictional, but it made me think because there was a TikTok that was going around about this giant door on the mountainside,
Yeah.
and do
I
you
think
know what
Bone
I'm talking?
Tomahawk was the one you're
Yes,
talking
Bone
about.
Tomahawk. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. I just saw it last night. I'm like, I had a couple. I haven't done this in I don't know how long. Covered my eyes. Oh, it was gruesome. But yeah, I was thinking, it's weird that, because I have you on the show and everything. I'm like, oh, and they made that horrific sound. So it got
Mhm.
me thinking maybe that there are, creatures that live in these like caves in the woods, in the forest, and they're like that. And we
Yeah.
don't know about it. So it made me think about
There's
it.
other cases I've covered where people heard a voice coming from a cave that knew their name or would even mimic somebody they knew that was either thousands of miles away or wasn't even alive anymore. So whatever it is, it has a way of getting into your head. And if I heard something calling my name from a cave, I would go the other direction just as fast as I could go.
Well, if they're calling you by name, that's
Yeah,
kind of that
that's
has
gotta
to
be
be
very
that's
creepy.
that's really creepy. Does any people ever talk about like creatures in the woods that call them by name? Like,
There's been some discussion about it, but that's another thing. The people that do go missing, when they are found, they either don't remember what happened to them or they're very hesitant to talk about it for whatever reason. So it's my opinion that they saw or experienced something out there that just, almost shattered their psyche, that they have a type of PTSD or something from
yeah.
it to not want to discuss it. But some of them covered a missing child case. It's been a couple of years ago now. Riker Webb, little boy that went missing from his home, and when they finally found him, he was I think I was over 2 miles away, but he had to go up a mountain, down another mountain, and through the woods. And they found him in a shed, a garden shed out behind another cabin. He was sitting in a grass clipping bag, the kind of behind the lawnmower that catches the clippings, and talking to himself. And when they
Oh,
brought him out of there, you'd have to look at the picture on the web. His eyes are like saucers. When I was little, I was born in 1963. I met a lot of Vietnam veterans as a child,
mhm.
and they had that look, that shell shocked, 1,000-yard stare. And that little kid, he's experienced something out there. I would love to see an interview with
What?
him later in life and see if he remembers any of what happened to
Yeah,
him.
because that kid's gonna.
But the weird thing, he's wearing these little footy pajamas like kids wear. The feet aren't even that dirty. And this was supposedly in the wintertime. He walked through, I don't know that it was snowing, but it was raining and muddy. But
Wow.
how'd he get there?
Yeah,
It's
seriously.
almost like he was teleported or something.
Yeah, for having on his feet, those little feety things that they were dirty. That was he wasn't saying anything. He was talking. He was just was he
I
mumbling
think he
anything?
asked for a Happy Meal or something. He was glad to
Oh
be
my
back,
god.
obviously, but and then there's other cases where kids that have gone missing, sometimes for a period of time, when they are found, they claim that a bear took them
Yeah,
back
I
to a
was just
cave,
gonna say
cuddled
that.
them, kept them warm, fed them berries. And I know bears don't do that,
So
especially in the wintertime. If a bear is just coming out of hibernation, they're hungry.
yeah.
They're not
That
going to
that
cuddle you.
yeah.
You are a burrito to them at that point.
Yeah, seriously. If it was like some kind of to me, maybe it was a female because I know animals like the females always have that protective nature. Maybe it was like a Bigfoot woman that
Yeah,
the maternal
anything
instinct
is
to take care of
possible,
it.
but then again, who knows? And I've covered a lot of strange Bigfoot cases and things too. Mount Shasta in California, I've been up there a couple of times. That's a weird, weird place. And one of the most incredible Bigfoot stories that I've ever heard, two for one, happened there. A woman claimed she was there. I think it was in the fall. on the slopes of Mount Shasta, and she claimed that she observed a female Bigfoot giving birth.
Oh,
And then there was another person, not related. They didn't know each other, had never heard each other's story. She was there about a year later, and in the same meadow, observed a female Bigfoot with a smaller youth Bigfoot. So, did one person watch her give birth, and another person saw the same Bigfoot with her baby about a year later? Strange stuff.
yeah, that's kind of crazy. So when you were an outdoorsman, you would go camping a lot.
Yeah.
Did you ever see something so unsettling or unexplainable?
I had an encounter in the Smokies once. I was up near Clingman's Dome, which is the highest point in the Smokies, and I've got a detailed story of this in my book, My Strange World. But I didn't hike on the normal hiking trails. I like to bushwhack and go through the rough hiking and stuff. And I'd been up to Clingman's Dome. I was headed back down. It was late in the afternoon. It was in I think late summer, early fall. And as I'm coming down just off to the side, Jenny, I see this just beautiful tree. It looked like a Disney tree in a clearing. It didn't even look real. And I walked into this clearing to have a better look at this tree. And I believe it was a beech tree, which is not indigenous to that area. At that height, you don't have those kind of trees. And I walked there and I'm looking at it. This thing was ancient. It was big enough around. It would have taken probably half a dozen people stretching and holding hands to circle around this tree. And it's just the most amazing tree I've ever seen. The clouds kind of parted. The sun shone down and hit this tree. And it was just this magical moment. But then suddenly, like everything in the forest got quiet. I mean, deathly quiet, like somebody hit a mute switch. I didn't hear the birds. I didn't hear the wind in the leaves. I didn't hear water or traffic or other people in the distance or anything. It was deafeningly quiet. And I'm standing there looking at this and thinking, this is not a normal occurrence. And it was like this little voice. It wasn't an audible voice, but a little voice whispered in the back of my head, like, doesn't that look comfortable? Wouldn't that be a good place to sit down and rest? In fact, you could probably sit there and take a nap. You're tired. You've been hiking. And I'm thinking, yeah. And then all of a sudden, the stark realization, like, wait a minute. Where did that thought even come from?
So
It's getting late. The
creepy.
sun's going to be down soon. I didn't have a headlamp with me. I need to get down off here and get back to where I'd parked. I'm going to be stuck up here in the woods all night. And I think there are things like that out there that lure people into this false sense of security. And that almost sounds like a Rip Van Winkle type thing.
Yeah.
I think if I'd sat down under
So
the tree
creepy.
and went to sleep, whatever's up there, it would have taken me, and I
Yeah.
would join the missing in the Smokies. So
That's so creepy. I don't like that at
that's one
all.
of the strangest experiences I've had there. But other places, when I was hiking it was on the Appalachian Trail just outside of Damascus, Virginia. I've never through hiked, but I did a lot of section hiking. And I was in there at night. Now I had a headlamp that time. It's about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was off trail. And I'd been hearing the tree knocks and the strange yips and yowls. Now there's a lot of animal noises that I'm somewhat familiar with, but occasionally you'll hear something that will make a noise that you're not so familiar with. So I'd been hearing these strange noises and heard the tree knocks. And all of a sudden I heard something hitting the ground, and I looked, and there were little round river rocks about 2 or 3 inches in diameter coming out of the tree line straight at me. They're not like, didn't follow a parabolic arc or anything like somebody was lobbing them at me. They were flying out of the woods. Didn't feel them hit me, but I heard them hitting the ground. I shined my headlamp down. I picked one up, and it was hot or warm to the touch. And I thought, what is this? This is strange. But then those, I call them my granny senses. I could hear my grandmother say, you need to probably turn around and go the other way. So I don't know that it was a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, but I've been hearing the noises, and they are prevalent in that area. And years later, thinking back on that, I came to the conclusion, I don't think they were trying to hurt me or scare me. I think they were trying to warn me. There was probably a bear or a big cat or something back in there that I was going to walk up on and surprise. And they were letting me know, hey, you need to turn around and go a different direction. And I did, and didn't have any other occurrences on that particular hike.
Now, did you feel like in both these incidents, did you felt like you were in danger or just had a weird feeling?
It was more of a weird feeling, kind of the prickling sensation that you get on the back of your neck. There's only been 3 times in my life that I was genuinely scared of something in the woods or in the edge of the woods, and they're in the book except for the scariest one, and I talk about that on one of my YouTube channels. But most times it's just an uncomfortable, uneasy feeling. Just listen to that gut instinct. You have something inside you that will warn you off of potentially bad
Mhm.
situations, I think, but you have to learn to listen to it.
So we can't hear your scary story. We have to wait and we have to go
I could
read
give
it.
you
Can
condensed
you give us a
versions of
little
them.
condensed version?
Um, Probably number 3, and then again, there's one that's scary, and the other 2 kinda tie for 2nd place. And one, I'd gone home with a friend from school. I'll call him Dickie, and, Dickie's parents liked their privacy. They lived way, way out in the woods. Their driveway was 2 miles long, and part of their property had been a working farm at one point. Well, about halfway down their driveway or a mile down this gravel road, there was an old farm shed of some sort, sat up on a bank, and there was a shale pit there. And we were kind of scientific minded for little kids. We were like 8, 9 years old. And we'd gone down there to look for fossils in the shale. And suddenly we heard some kind of weird noise, almost like a growl or some kind of animalistic noise. And we looked up at the same time where this little shed was, up on the bank there, up on a little rise. And there was something in there that we drew pictures of it independently when we both saw the same thing. It looked like a horse skull, but it still had the eyes, but they weren't on the sides of the head like a horse. They were in the front, and it had these really sharp teeth. Horses have those big flat teeth, for chewing
Yeah.
up vegetation stuff, but this had sharp teeth and kind of a rictus grin there. It couldn't not grin, just because of the sharp teeth, and it didn't have any flesh on it. But unlike a horse, it had horns like antlers or something coming out of its head. And it was making some kind of noise at us, and we saw it at the same time. We panicked and ran screaming back up the driveway.
Horns.
And his mom was trying to get us settled down. His dad finally had had enough. He came out of the house and wanted to know what all the hubbub was out here. And we'd calmed down a little bit by that point to describe what we'd seen. And finally, he's like, okay, just settle down. I'm going to go down there and have a look. Went inside, gets a double barrel shotgun, goes walking down the driveway. So we're outside under the shade of an apple tree. His mom brought us some Kool-Aid or some lemonade out there or something. We're trying to settle down, and we're listening. We're waiting for a blast or a scream or something. Well, in a few minutes, he comes walking back up the hill, shotgun over his shoulder, just a strange look on his face. And he came over to where we were, and he knelt down and said, I want you boys to promise me something. He said, promise me you'll never go down there and play around that shack again. And that's a promise I made, and I've kept it for 52 years now. But and then a couple of weeks later at school, Dickie came up to me and said, hey, that shed down there we're not supposed to play in? He said, my dad pulled it down into the shale pit and burned it. So I think he saw something and it scared him too. But the thing was, he was full Cherokee. And I've been told by people more proficient in the legends and stuff than I am that was some type of skinwalker or something that might have even been after him. But either way, we encountered it, and it scared the pants off of both us. And I was 8 and Dickie was 9.
What year was this? Because this sounds like a story that Tim Renner had. He was talking about,
I know Tim, strange familiars, but he may have heard me tell it. It would have been, let's see, I was born in 63, so about 1970, 1971, somewhere in there.
He said something almost similar to this story. I mean, that he'd happened to him around here.
So
yeah,
anything could happen anywhere. And then the second time that I was scared, it also happened when I was 8 years old. This happened on the farm where I grew up. I was out just wandering around the woods. Like I said, we lived on 26 and a half acres and only about 5 acres of that was cleared. So I had a lot of woods to play in. There were natural creeks and things on that property. taught myself a lot of woodcraft and just enjoyed being in the woods. I was a late in life unexpected baby, and my only brother, was 17 years older than me, so didn't really know him. So I had to make my own fun. We lived out in the country. Nearest neighbor my age was about 2 miles away. So I'm out one day just wandering around, and I'd build tree forts and catch minnows and tadpoles and things like that. And this one particular time I'd walked up, there was a big ditch that ran along one line of the property, about 12, 15 feet deep in this particular part of it. And my brother had an old, he used to keep hunting dogs. He was a hunter prior to me being born. And I walked up there and past where he used to keep his dog run out there. It was rusting into the ground. There was nothing there. Had been no animals in it for years. Walked up and kind of looked down in this ditch and thought, I'm not going to bother climbing down there right now. But I turned around to walk away. And when I did, I heard something in the leaves. As I turned back around, whatever it was came up over the lip of the ditch directly toward me, maybe 50 feet away, but I couldn't see anything. I could see the effect that it was having on everything. Tree branches swaying, leaves being kicked up, but there was nothing there. I could feel the footfalls. That's how heavy whatever this was. So I ran screaming down the hill. I was probably a quarter mile away from home. And I was making enough fuss. My mom came out on the back porch to see what I'd gotten into this time. And I went past her inside the house and hid under the furniture. And not too long after that, my dad got home and my brother just happened to stop by. He'd been out married and on his own for a few years at that point. And I was trying to describe to them what happened up there. They were asking me questions like, well, was it a bear? No. Was it a deer? No. Was it a skunk? No, there was none of these things. I lived in the woods. I had seen those things in the wild. We had deer and other animals. We didn't have any bear there that I ever encountered, but I'd seen those in the Smokies even as a kid. But whatever it wasn't visible. Well, flash forward a few years later, I'm 15 and we're getting ready to move from there. We'd sold that farm and we're moving a few miles up the road closer to where I was going to go to high school. 15 at this time. I'm out just taking one last look around the property, looking at all my haunts. There was a bee tree there and a lot of rock formations, like I said, springs and a creek that went into the lake and things. And I walked back up there. First time I'd been up there by myself in a long time. I'd tried going up with a friend and nothing bothered me. Even sent him up to the edge of the ditch as bait. I go stand and look in there and see if you see anything. And I'll hide down here behind this tree. But that time I was alone. I walked up to the edge of the ditch, looked back down and then thought, wonder what scared me 7 years ago when I was 8, just kind of laughing at myself almost. Turned around, walked back down the hill. And again, about the time I got a few yards away, that old familiar sound of something in the leaves. Turned around and looked. Sure enough, came over the edge of the lip of the ditch there, right toward me. Now, I didn't run crying and screaming that time, but excuse me, I didn't waste any time getting back to the house. Then we moved about 3 months later. Flash forward another 6 years. I'm 21 now. I'm working in West Knoxville. And the guy that I worked with invited me to a house party after work. And I didn't know this guy really at all, just from work, and didn't really know him from there. But I thought, sure, I'll go. It's just down the street at a clubhouse, an apartment complex. So we get there. There's a bunch of people there, maybe 20, 30 people. And some of the girls that were in attendance of the party, they either, I don't know if they had it with them or if they found it under the couch in the clubhouse. But anyway, they came out with a Ouija board.
Oh,
and
no.
They said, this will be fun. We're going to, go around the room and ask people questions. And they, got it sitting there and doing its thing, and comes around to me. And the only thing I said was, what scared me when I was 8 years old? Didn't give away anything. I never told that story to anybody outside of my immediate family, and certainly didn't tell it to the guy that I worked with or anybody that was in attendance at that party. Well, they get the planchette, and there's 2 girls there doing it. It's doing its figure 8, and then it starts spelling out WATERSPRITE. They looked at me, I just shrugged. I don't know. And they made a joke. Oh, the board's thirsty. It wants some water or maybe a Sprite. Ha ha ha. And then they went on to somebody else. But the next day that I had off, I went to the big library in downtown Knoxville. I went up to the reference desk and asked the reference librarian, I said, what can you tell me about a water sprite, water spirit? She goes off into the stacks, come back. She's got a big book of mythology and like fey creatures and elementals and things in it. But there was two that particularly caught my attention. One was a naiad and the other was a dryad. A naiad is a spirit, the guardian of the waters, and a dryad is a guardian of the forest. Well, this particular property, like I said, there was water there. There were 7 natural springs there that flowed out of hillsides. 6 of them did. One was an artesian spring that flowed into the creek, which went into the lake. So what better place for a guardian of the water or the woods than a place like this? So according to the Ouija board, that's what chased me out of the woods, something that I couldn't see.
That's
It's any explanation I've got, but there you go.
That is Ouija board. Like, where did the Ouija board, the spirit behind the Ouija board, where did he get the information from?
So it knew, because it knew exactly, to my recollection, what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because that made sense. And the ditch line that I talked about, from further research as an adult, found out that was the old stagecoach road through the area dating back to Revolutionary times.
Wow.
And that area down by the springs, which was just down the hill, we regularly found arrowheads, Civil War bullets and things down there. I think a lot of people had gotten ambushed stopping there for water. And who knows? There was a lot of places in that land that we lived on that had supernatural things or didn't feel right.
Seems like it has a lot of supernatural stuff going on there. I just want to take a quick pause. If you're just joining us tonight, we have Steve Stockton. He's a researcher, author. He has a couple podcasts, Missing People. It's a really interesting. So if you want to check him out on what's the name of your podcast again?
Missing Person Mysteries. That's the big one. I've got some other channels, but that's the. I think I'm around 278,000 subs over there. So a lot of. Don't want to say a lot of fun because it's a touchy subject that we're
on, it's very touchy. It's enjoyable if you're interested
these people's
in that.
names and faces out there. Yeah.
So a lot of it is tragic. When you miss, gosh, when you hear on the news all these, what was that little girl? She was missing. They found her murdered by someone she had babysat her.
The one you're talking about, but the name slips my mind. But yeah, those are the terrible ones. At least if they're never found, there's still a hope that they may be alive. But if you look at that from a parent or a relative or a loved one or a friend's side of it, that's got to be just absolutely gut-wrenching for somebody to disappear and you never have closure.
You never have
Dennis
closure.
Martin case that I talked about, I met his father under different circumstances. And on his desk at the architectural firm that he worked at, he had a picture of Dennis on it. Says that was why I figured out who he was, but I didn't mention the case. But every year around the anniversary of Dennis's disappearance, the local stations there in Knoxville would run a special about Dennis. And I'll never forget, they interviewed his father. I think it was like the 40th anniversary of the disappearance. And he said, I've always felt in my heart of hearts that I'll never see him again. But he said, there's a part of me that thinks one day there's going to be a knock at the door. And I'll go to the door and there'll be a young man standing there. And he's going to say, oh, another reporter. Open the door. Yeah, can I help you? And the young man will look at me in the eye and say, Dad, it's me. It's Dennis. I've come home. That just tore me up so bad. It never happened.
Yeah.
He passed away a few years ago without ever knowing what happened to Dennis. Nobody knows. It's got to be just terrible for a parent.
Gut-wrenching. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to go on. I don't think I could handle that, especially if it's your child disappears and you never have any closure. I'd totally be thinking, my mind wouldn't shut off. I would just go in all the darkest possible outcomes. I couldn't live with myself if something happened.
It would be horrific and just hard to imagine.
Yeah.
At least, if they are found deceased, you can have a proper burial or
Yeah.
have an urn on the mantle with the ashes in it. But if they're never found, you don't have anything.
Then if we go in the other
no road of
direction,
memory.
Steve, if you go in the other direction and it's an child predator, and
Yeah.
then they do come back and they're never going to be the same. I mean, I don't think so. If they abuse the
No.
child, the kid's never going
Yeah,
to be
there's
normal.
going to be the trauma for life there.
Yeah, it's going to be just horrific. Yeah, but the ones that are interesting to me, the ones that there is no evidence. The person just it's or if it's a hunter that is experienced, he
Yeah.
knows the woods. He like even the ex-military men, they know how to use a weapon, and they just disappear.
Yeah.
There's nothing. They're never come back. They're gone
And
forever.
that happens more often than not. It'll be somebody that's very experienced. Trail runners, mountain trail runners, like you mentioned, hunters, ex-military, people that, you would think they would fare a lot better in the woods. But if there is something taking people, it seems to have criteria for selection. And that's one of the things that it appears to like. A lot of missing people tend to be of Germanic descent. They tend to have on one end of the spectrum or the other, they're either very, very intelligent or on the autism spectrum.
Wow.
So I
That's
don't know. There's a
crazy.
lot of curious stuff out there, and there's a lot more questions than answers. In fact, there aren't any real answers in a lot of these cases.
It just blows my mind when I hear about them, or I watch so many podcasts and listen to radio talk shows about it, like how they like on the one case that David, I can't remember the name of it, where the hunter had his boots were set such a perfect like together, or they found his coffee cup, thermos on the top of a hill by itself.
Yeah.
It's like, why? It's
And
like,
that's another thing where a lot of times they'll find the person's boots or shoes,
yeah,
and they've just left them there like they've continued barefoot. And sometimes that'll be in either places where you would have difficulty walking barefoot or in the middle of a snowstorm. And they just
yeah.
walk out and they found clothing, sometimes folded and just left there near where the person disappeared. So what is that? But, I have not really a theory, but a thought on that. If you were someone or something that wanted to hunt a human, but you wanted to at least give them a sporting chance, what better thing to do than take their boots off and then say, okay, you've got a head start. Let's see how far you can get.
Oh,
And isn't that horrifying?
that
I
is
lived in Portland,
crazy.
Oregon for a while, and you may have heard of the Shanghai tunnels, which are a real thing in Portland. It's back from the frontier, the pioneer days of Portland. But some of the bars and brothels downtown had like a chute in the back where you would be dropped down into one of these tunnels. You're having a drink, enjoying yourself, whatever. They slip you something. When you wake up, you're disoriented. You've been dropped down this chute. If you're not already on a ship headed out to sea, that's where the Shanghai part comes in, the thing of getting shanghaied. But I've toured those tunnels. There's some of them that you can still go into. The floor is sandy, but it's covered in broken glass. So you wake up, you've been drugged, you're disoriented, you're missing your shoes, and the floor is covered in glass. What would you do? You couldn't get away. So again,
No.
frightening to think about. But, when you're conjecturing, there's all kinds of things. This is the kind of stuff that rolls around in my head at night when I can't sleep, thinking of these scenarios.
That would keep me up more. Michael Anthony says slave labor buildings, the underground worlds. Isn't that what you were just sort of what you were saying?
I've heard that theory too, that there are underground bases that exist and that they need humans either to as labor or to replenish whatever they need to further the people that live down there. If you're creating a new society underground, you're going to need different blood types, different people to get away from inbreeding and things like that. If you're starting, or there's that theory about that it's some sort of alien or extraterrestrial work, and that they're using humans for hybrids.
Yeah, that's what I was reading, that they did that. That all these underground, the levels underground in Mexico, was it
Dulce, yeah,
Dulce?
a lot of
They have.
stories out there, and it's hard to find anywhere on the internet. But there's a man named Phil Schneider that worked in Dulce Base, had an incredible story, and it's been pretty much scrubbed from the internet. But if you can find a copy of it, take a look at that. And his testimony is just compelling, and he knows what he's talking about. You can tell he's not just making stuff up. And kind of a Bob Lazar type
Oh
thing.
yeah. Well, there was a woman on Facebook that I follow. I got a lot of information from her. I can't remember her name. I am so bad anymore with my memory. She had all these sketches, and she was talking about that sometimes the government are taking these people and they're doing the experiments. They're taking people and they're going for the smartest people. So it's like you said, that some of these hunters that are so intelligent that disappear, that they're actually the government military are taking people and they're presumed missing. Meanwhile, they're abducting them.
Yeah,
Who knows what they're using them
there's
for?
so many different theories about that, and there's a possibility, or a plausibility rather, to all of them if you stop and think about it.
Yes, Cindy, all proof we won't find the truth. If we did find the truth, who would believe us? Yeah.
And then there's also the containment theory, which the brothers over on the Belief Hole podcast have talked about that one a few times, that the national parks were created to contain these hybrids in an area where we can keep them away from the general population, but that anybody that ventures into the national parks, then you're fair game.
Yeah, I can see that happening with this.
There's so many rabbit holes. And once you go down one rabbit hole, then you're into a whole warren, and there's other rabbit holes that go off on all the other sides. And it's, again, that one measures a circle beginning anywhere. And that it's like an octopus with 1,000 tentacles, especially when you start going into the woo factor like that, the conspiracy theories and things, which who knows? I mean, people are capable of doing anything.
Michael says they are preparing EIE preparations. Do you know what he means by that?
I think that's ELE, extinction level event, building underground bases for the elites and things in case of some sort of catastrophic thing here on the surface, so that they could go underground and survive and try to rebuild and repopulate.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going around the internet and all the different social medias that they're saying they're preparing us for something that they're going to plan. They're planning on doing on the government, and to me, even hospitals and dentist office, because they are considered medical. It's like they're doing this. But you know what, Steve? I think they think we're like really stupid. Like we can't figure this out. That it's them. Like even they're saying about the false alien invasion, the fake alien invasion that they're planning and everything. And
Heard that. And then there's Project Bluebeam, which I've
yes,
heard conspiracy theories about, where they can beam holographic projections into the sky that you'll believe. And then there's also a school of thought on that they can actually project those into your head so that you can see and hear things that aren't really
okay.
there, but you'll believe it.
So you just what you just said was something I was talking about. I don't know if it was last week or actually I had a conversation with the person right here, one of my friends, associates, that a lot of people are claiming that used to be that you would be talking in front, like you say you're talking to your wife, and I want to go get new I don't know, I want a new car. And all of a sudden you start seeing all this stuff on, come up on Google. Okay. Now you didn't Google it. Okay. So your phones or whatever in your house, your TV is spying on you, but this gets a little bit worse. Okay. This is a little step up. A lot of people I know, this happened to me, actually 2 or 3 people I've talked to, that you thought of something you were interested in doing, maybe going to Aruba. You're thinking it, and all of a sudden, you're not saying it out loud, but all of a sudden, your computers, your Google, Facebook, you're getting all these ads. Now tell me how the hell that is happening.
Yeah, and I've had the same thing happen. My wife and I, we've stuff that we just thought about that we haven't even mentioned to one another. We'll start getting ads for it. So
Yes, how is that happening?
yeah, that's I don't know.
Because it's
I've had
not
people.
just limited to one or
Yeah,
two people. It's like everybody's experiencing this, and
yeah.
it's like, what
And
the?
I knew of a guy that was shopping in the store, and there was something he thought about. I'm going to look for that, but he just thought it in his head.
Yes,
And he's using a little in-store shopping app, and it suddenly pops up, and like Pop-Tarts are on aisle 6, and he hadn't looked it up. He hadn't spoken it aloud, but he was thinking, I wonder where the Pop-Tarts are, and then Pop-Tarts are on aisle 6. And again, if they've got that kind of technology that they're using on consumers, imagine what the military version of that can do.
yes, but where's it coming from? Is it coming from the government? Is it coming from somebody else? Up here and is our huge distraction. What up here is our huge distraction, but they are things real. We are seeing.
Yeah, classic misdirection, like the parlor magician. See what this hand's doing, but you don't pay attention to this hand. It's
Yeah.
actually, it's everything like that. I think is some sort of distraction. Like the people keep talking about the full disclosure, and now with AI and CGI and all that, if a UFO landed on the White House lawn, people wouldn't believe it.
You're not going to believe it. You're not
Yeah.
going to believe it. You've become so desensitized to all this crap that they're putting out there that I wouldn't believe them. And even if they come back and they say, "Oh, there's like this new thing is about a new pandemic, this new germ, this X germ," I'm going to tell you, you know what? No, you're just bullshit.
It's in the commercials. It's on the TV shows and in the movies. That's why they call it programming. I think we're being
Yeah.
conditioned to think certain ways about certain things to make whatever this big reveal or series of big reveals is going to be. Now we're getting into some conspiracy territory here, but you never know.
Yeah, well, I'm a big conspiracy trace things will be controlled by computers, even us. Yeah, that's what's scary about AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Artificial
I mean,
intelligence.
it's a useful tool. I've used it for
Yeah.
some of the things that I do, but if it becomes cognizant, if you've ever seen the movie RoboCop, and that was from the 80s, where the robot police shows up, present your papers, citizen. The guy shows his papers, and it says you have 5 seconds to present your papers. Like, here they are. I'm showing you. And then the RoboCop thing had permission to obliterate him. So I think that's what'll happen. It'll be a war with the robots at some point.
Definitely, it's going to be a war.
If they become self-aware, they're going to decide, well, the biggest threat to humanity is humans. So humans must be eradicated.
Well, just like Elon Musk wants to put those chips in people for medical reasons, I still don't think it's a good idea. It might help somebody with. I don't think GPT predicted the COVID pack. Yeah, they probably did. I was talking to a couple people yesterday about ChatGPT, how to perform heart surgery on a valve replacement. Okay, and he'll tell you how to do it. That's what's scary, So your doctor's going to be on ChatGPT trying to figure out how to do it. You can do anything with that. That's just.
But it can make mistakes. It tells you, verify important things. So I wouldn't want a doctor operating on me that was getting directions from AI. I'm sorry.
No, but that would scare me. But if you needed to perform something, I don't know. It's kind of scary. Getting your information
from the right direction, I think.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't rely too heavily on it.
It's good. It's good to a point, but I don't think it's.
And
gonna
again,
it's
this
take
is
over
the level of stuff that we can access. Imagine what the military-industrial complex, what their AI is like.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but okay, we're running down to the last
time to be alive.
Yes, it's a fascinating time to be alive, but it's a scary time too. It's like, gosh, if you think about your grandparents, could they have handled all this stuff? I don't know, but maybe your grandma might. But Steve, let us know where we can find you. Let our audience know where they can find you.
The main channel of Missing Persons and Mysteries on YouTube And then I'm on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. My show, Everything Out There, airs on Sunday nights from 9 to 11 Eastern. And my books are available on Amazon, or if you want signed personalized copies, I have those on my Etsy shop. Just Steve Stockton Books on Etsy.
Well, there you go, folks. You should probably do ASMR too, because you have a cool voice. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It was really a good show. It was a pleasure having you on the show, Steve. And thank you everybody in the chat to join us. And we'll see you next time. Same place, same channel. And don't forget to watch Into the Night with Sean Kelly. He's next up. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. See you later and have a great weekend. And my music did not come on, so I don't know why. But anyways, see you later. Signing off. Have a good one, everyone. Love you.